Hello everyone, welcome to the news charter series of Vishishta IAS Academy. The idea behind this daily current affairs series is, even though multiple resources, current affairs materials are available online and even in market, it has become almost very difficult for students to analyze the current affairs in a proper way. So, in the daily news analysis which you get and in the monthly compilations which you get, the resources are very minimal, they are restricted. The compilations, if you see, most of the compilations are of a particular number of pages. So the academies give materials based on their idea which is important and which is a not so important news. Whereas UPSC does not take any questions based on the monthly compilations of any academies. So for a student who is preparing for the examination, it is very, very important to understand the newspaper completely, analyze the newspaper completely, and to know when a person is reading a news, what parts should be taken for prelims, which parts should be analyzed from the mains point of view. And even though you are a first time aspirant, you need to know which parts or which news you should be knowing from interview perspective. So the idea behind this series is we will enable those skills in the aspirants itself. We will not make the students to depend on certain compilations or certain materials. We will tell you the details in just 15 minutes every day so that you get a complete idea on what news should be focused, what things you should be doing on your own, what kind of research you should do, how you should focus on certain news, how you should divide it and analyze it in a right way. Having said that, let's start the news charter for today. Some important topics were given today. So these are all the topics which we will be analyzing in today's series. The first news was related to Citizenship Amendment Act. The government has told that the rules for Citizenship Amendment Act will be framed by March 2024. When you read this news, this particular news is important from prelims as well as mains point of view. First thing, whenever you read certain news like this, you need to know what are the important provisions. First thing, what about the Citizenship Amendment Act? Now, you don't have to go back and read each and every detail. All you need to know is the basic provisions. In this particular act, citizenship was given on the basis of religion, not to everyone, just for six undocumented non-Muslim communities. What were the communities? Hindus, Sikh, Buddhist, Jain, Parsis, and Christians. From specific countries only, that is Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, who entered India on or before 31st of December 2014. Usually, these kind of questions, if they are asking in prelims, they will give statement-based questions. So this is why you need to know the details very well. Only six communities from only three countries which are neighboring India. The reason why only six communities were included, because in these countries, these six communities were subjected to religious persecution at some point of time or even today. This was the reason. So this particular act will exempt these communities, refugees from these communities, from two important laws. First one, Foreigners Act 1946, and then the Passport Act 1920. These two acts take care of people who are residing in the country without a legal passport or without any kind of permit from the government. So from prelims point of view, you just need to know this. From mains examination point of view, what you should be knowing is what is the Citizenship Amendment Act and how it impacts the fundamental rights. Because in 2019, when this act was introduced, there were several problems. A lot of demonstrations were happening all over the country where people were telling it is against the fundamental right, for which the government argued even though we have Article 14, which tells right to equality and equal protection of law, this particular act is subjected to only certain religious denominations and only to people who come from certain countries. So we can treat them differently, is what the government told. Another major problem with this particular act is they have included three countries, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh, whereas even in Sri Lanka, civil war was going on earlier, and a lot of Sri Lankan Tamil refugees have been shifted to Tamil Nadu and they are staying in Tamil Nadu. And they are considered as illegal migrants, illegal immigrants. So when the government can include the above communities, why not include Sri Lankan Tamils? In the same way, Rohingya Muslims were also subjected to religious persecution, and a lot of Rohingyas are living in the northeastern part of the country. So these people are not included here. We have to wait and see what kind of rules will be framed by the government and whether it will deal with some of the problems or not. So for prelims, it is important. For mains also, it is important. Next one, same-sex marriage, the status in India. Recently, there was a Supreme Court judgment in which the Supreme Court has told that there is no problem for people, that is the LGBTQ community, to exist and to live with their partner. There is no problem, but the judiciary cannot give a legal right to marry. They cannot consider that the right to marry is a fundamental right. So here, from prelims and mains perspective both, what we should know is the Supreme Court has told very clearly there is no constitutional validity. This is a very important point. No constitutional validity is there. And then Supreme Court has said that it is the job of the parliament to make laws. Supreme Court will not make law. Legislative body is there, that is the government, that is the parliament. So parliament will be making law, and then the Supreme Court will not intervene in this. The people who were fighting for the marriage rights of LGBTQ community, they told that we can make some changes to the Special Marriage Act of 1954 and then include the provisions for LGBTQ community also. Supreme Court has told amending this particular act comes under the jurisdiction of the government, and we as a judicial body cannot intervene in it. They have also told that right to marry is not expressly recognized either as fundamental right or constitutional right. This is very, very important for prelims. For mains, you may get questioned, but not in a very narrow way asking about the right to marriage. But in prelims, there is a very high scope of getting this particular question. You need to know about it. One particular case is very important from mains examination point of view, that is Shafin Jahan versus Ashokan KM. It happened in 2018, in which the court told that right to marry according to one's own choice comes under Article 21, which is right to life and personal liberty. Right to marry according to one's choice. For example, if I'm a Hindu, if I want to marry a woman who is a Muslim, that is my choice. I can marry. It comes under Article 21, but right to marry itself cannot be a constitutional right. So we need to be very clear about it. Right to marry according to one's own choice comes under fundamental rights, whereas right to marry itself is not a fundamental right. Next, we need to know a little bit about the Special Marriage Act. We do not have to go into detail and study each and every provision. All we need to know is what is this Special Marriage Act. So we have separate codes. Hindu marriage code is there. Muslim marriage code is there. So based on that, for Hindus, that will apply. For Muslims, a Muslim code will apply. So there is a separate act called the Special Marriage Act 1954, which deals with civil marriage of people of India and all Indian nationals in any foreign country, irrespective of the religion. So this particular point is very important. Special Marriage Act deals with people and their marriage irrespective of any religion. Inter-religious marriages Intercaste marriage, inter-religious marriages specifically comes under the Special Marriage Act. So from prelims point of view, see, this is how you will analyze the news. This is what we talk about news analysis. Just reading the news and going through is not enough. You need to know how to analyze. Here, Article 16.2 should be studied. Article 16.2 talks about no discrimination based on religion, race, caste, sex, descent, and place of birth, residence, or any of them. So, based on these things, we cannot make any discrimination. They have included sets also. They have included place of birth, descent, religion, race, everything. So if that is the fundamental right, the government need to come up with a law and make amends to the Special Marriage Act. Cohabitation is a fundamental right. So if two people want to live together, the court or the government cannot make any law and tell that you cannot live together. So that is up to the people. So this is all when we talk about this is all when we talk about the this is all when we talk about the Special Marriages Act in India. Now when we go for the next one, that is Ayushman Bharat. So there was a small news which told that Ayushman Bharat Health and Wellness Centers will now be renamed to Ayushman Arogya Mandir. This point itself is not much important because the government will come up with new names. They will rebrand it. If a new government comes, the government will change the scheme and name it in a different way. That's not important. Whereas certain things are very important for your mains examination specifically. We need to have a basic idea about Ayushman Bharat because it was considered to be one of the best schemes, best health scheme which was introduced by the government. It has two approaches. One thing, it talks about creation of health and wellness centers and formulation of Pradhan Mantri Arogya Yojana. So these 2 points are very, very important. What are the two-pronged approach of the Ayushman Bharat scheme? So one is Health and Wellness Center. Second one is Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. In Health and Wellness Center, these are comprehensive primary healthcare centers that will be started all over the country. And what they will do, they will provide maternal child health services and also services for non-communicable diseases, including free essential drugs and diagnostic services. Usually, in the present days, the government has stopped concentrating too much on schemes when it comes to prelims. However, in mains, it is very, very important. Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, it talks about insurance, health insurance with 5 lakh per family for secondary care as well as tertiary care. In secondary care, it will not include a super specialist. If there is any disease in which a school super specialist work has to be done, that will not come under Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. The insurance cost is shared among the center and the state. This point is very important for prelims. What is the sharing ratio? 60 is to 40. National Health Agency is a body which implement the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. This particular point is extremely important when it comes to prelims. These kind of points will be asked in prelims in a very extensive way. So you need to be careful about it. Ayushman Bharat is a very important scheme. You need to study about it. There was a small news about Broadcasting Services Regulation Bill 2023. Even though it is still in the stage of a bill, it has not been passed completely. Even then, we need to know about it because there is a high chance of getting this question. This is why the experience of a person in understanding and analyzing the previous year questions comes into play. Whenever there is something which is very important from futuristic perspective, you need to know about it. So broadcasting services bill is very futuristic in nature. The reason being, in the present days, OTT platforms, online streaming platforms, online news platforms have been improving in a very big manner. So this particular bill talks about regulating these kind of platforms. That's the reason you need to know about it. This is very important for your mains examination. What are all the basic things it talks about? It talks about replacing the Cable Television Network Act 1995. In 1995, when the cable television started to boom, the government, in order to regulate it, they came up with a Cable Television Network Regulation Act 1995. So this particular bill, if it is passed, it will remove the Cable Television Network Act 1995, and it will, all the provisions which were handled by the Cable Television Network will come under the Broadcasting Services Regulation Bill. It talks about regulating the over-the-top, that is OTT content, and digital news, and then current affairs content. It gives a comprehensive definition for contemporary broadcasting terms. At present, there are new terms cropping in: OTT, online streaming, online current affairs. So whatever new terms are there, which do not have a proper legal definition until now, will be dealt by this particular act. Self-regulation is given importance with the introduction of content evaluation committees. There will be content evaluation committee. What composes this committee and other things we need to see. At present, it is not completely clear. But self-regulation means if I am a person who have been making a channel and delivering content, I need to regulate it myself by telling that this is a news channel, and then I will follow these particular regulations. Self-classification by the broadcasters themselves. The broadcasters will classify their own product under certain categories based on the requirement. Statutory penalties are given because this is very, very important. At present, several platforms are there. Too much of data consumption is there. So we need to make sure that certain penalties are given. If someone is crossing the limit, if someone is not following the regulations which were told by the government, there should be certain penalties, which includes warning, censure, and monetary penalties. It addresses the infrastructure sharing. So if two different broadcasting networks are there, and if one network want to share its infrastructure with other network, what will be the provisions? What kind of regulations should be followed? Everything will be taken care. It talks about a proper dispute resolution mechanism. At present, there are a lot of news about the government telling to remove certain contents. The government will just give some notification and tell that you need to remove these contents, and then the channels, the online platforms have to remove it. So that happens without proper clarity. Once this act gets passed, there will be proper clarity about it. What's about the Bihar special category status? In the recent days, a lot of news keeps coming in. So just reading about what is a special category state and what are all the provision is not enough. You need to know what you should focus for prelims and what you should focus for mains. The reason why they are asking a special category status, because there is an increase in percentage of population of deprived caste. In the recent times, the government came up with a caste census, caste-based status of people. For example, how much of SC population is there, how much ST population is there, how much of OBC population is there, and then what are all their socio-economic status. So based on that, the Bihar government told there is increase in percentage of population among the deprived caste. People who belong to the deprived caste population have increased. So due to which more, we need a special category status. So how much the percentage is important for people who are preparing from Bihar, people who have their birthplace in Bihar. For them, this particular point is important for interview. For others, it is not. 14th Finance Commission had clearly said that no special category status will be given to any other state, because special category status has been there from the time of 5th Finance Commission, but that has not reaped good result at all. It has actually resulted in too much of finance crunch. So there is no proper benefit out of it. There is no well established benefits out of it. So that is why 14th Finance Commission has told we will remove it. And 14th Finance Commission has also told that we will have 42% of the central's revenue to devolve into the state's revenue. So if 42% of the revenue is getting devolved, and then apart from that, you have the central grant also. If all these things are there, there is no use for giving a special category status to any other new states. Usually earlier, until now, whatever states have the special category status, it was based on certain things. These points are very, very important. One thing, if the state should have a lot of hilly terrain. Second, it should have very low population density. It should have a sizable amount of tribal population. It should be located in very strategic location, that is near Bangladesh or near China, or near Pakistan, these kind of things. Economic and infrastructure backwardness should be there, and then the state's finances should be in a very dangerous state or in a very bad state. If these things are there, there can be a special category status provided. There is no constitutional provision. The reason why this particular point is included here is because this is important for your prelims perspective. Two points given here are very, very important from prelims examination point of view. No constitutional status is there for special category status, and then it is the fifth finance commission which talked about giving a special category status. At present, which states have the special category status is given here. I would suggest you to read it in a very good way. This year, it can be a very important topic. 90% of the funds given here in a centrally sponsored scheme. So in centrally sponsored scheme, usually what the government does is the central government will give 60% and ask the state to give 40%, or sometimes the central government gives 70% of the fund and ask the state to give 30%. But if the state is under the special category status, the central government will give 90% of the funds, and the state government will have to give just 10% of the funds. And all the funds will be non-lapsable in nature. That is, by the end of the year, if the state has not utilized the fund, even then it will not be lapsed. It can be carried forward to the next year. 30% of the center's gross budget at present goes only for special category states. So this particular point becomes important for your mains. You don't have to study this detail in prelims, you will not get it, but for mains, in case if you are getting a question on special category status, this particular point becomes very, very important. You need to know about it. Let's move on to the next one. All India Judicial Services. Recently, our President Draupadi Murmu told that there should be a special All India Judicial Service. So from prelims point of view, what you should know is about Article 312. Even in mains, you may get questioned because judiciary is a favorite subject, favorite topic for UPSC in GS2. So if you are getting a question on judicial services, you need to quote this particular article. In the introduction itself, you can tell that Article 312 of the Constitution deals with establishment of an All India Judicial Service. So what does it tell? It tells that All India Judicial Service can be implemented by the government, but it should not include any position which is inferior to that of a district judge. This fact is important for prelims. If a judicial All India Judicial Service has been implemented, then the people who are recruited with the All India Judicial Service should not be less than the status of a district judge. So district judges and those who are above that position can be recruited through All India Judicial Service. The government wanted to implement this provision, and the government had been taking a discussion about it with the states and the high courts and the judiciary of the country. But however, there are a lot of problems in implementing it. Several states have told that it is not good to implement it. Their states are not ready to implement it, and the judiciary also has its own reservation, due to which it has become little problematic, very difficult to implement, and it is taking a lot of time. So what we need to know is, at present, the All India Judicial Service is not implemented completely by the government, and then Article 312 talks about it. From mains point of view, we need to know what is the necessity, why we should have All India Judicial Service. We need to have certain points. One thing, there are a lot of pendency. Too many cases are pending with the government. There is lack of number of judges in the district courts specifically. So we need more judges to come up, and we need more judges so that the pending cases can be dealt with. To ensure equal representation by different sections. So the SC population, ST population, even OBC population is not represented to a greater extent in judicial service. But if all India examination is there, like the UPSC examination, and if the government is recruiting people for it, for the judicial services, then there will be reservation and there will be equal representation also. So, due to all these reasons, to make the judicial services accessible to the people, due to all these reasons, we should come up with a All India Judicial Service. What is the process that is mentioned in Article 312 for creation of new service is something which is very, very important. The Council of States, that is the Rajya Sabha, have to pass a resolution which is supported by two-thirds of the members present and voting. That if the Rajya Sabha is passing a resolution with two-third majority of the people present and voting, then Parliament may, by law, provide for creation of a All India Service. This includes the Indian Judicial Service also. In future, if the government want to create any other service, this is the provision. So the process that has to be followed is very important for your prelims examination perspective. Some of the important points which you should do, because see, it is for the people, the students who prepare, to do some extra work. You should not be dependent on any resource. You should not be dependent 100% on any resource. UPSC wants students who will do some work on their own, who will analyze certain things on their own. That is very, very important. So for today, what you should do is, a lot of news is coming out about the Sea Tiara tunnel collapse. So you need to study about the map of Uttarakhand, important mountain passes in Uttarakhand. Do not just restrict with Uttarakhand. Important mountain passes in Uttarakhand, in Himachal Pradesh, in Arunachal Pradesh. All these Himalayan states should be studied. Important national highways which passes through Uttarakhand, Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh should be studied. Major tunnels in India. For example, Atal Tunnel is there. It was constructed earlier, which is functioning in a very nice way. You need to know about it. Important Himalayan passes and rivers that goes through in the northernmost states of the country. Rivers and their tributaries, passes. The pass connects which states. Those things are very important for prelims examination perspective. Today, try to do this work. Have a small note of it. Some important points you need to know from mains examination perspective is, what is judicial restraint? Try to learn about judicial restraint. The reason why I have included it here is, when it comes to LGBTQ marriage, the judiciary told that we will not intervene in the work of the legislature. Legislature should be making the law. So why would the judiciary intervene? So that is what we call as judicial restraint. Do a little research about it, try to learn about it, judicial restraint, judicial activism. So all these things you should be knowing for your mains examination. The same-sex marriage is not approved by the judiciary. It has a lot of problems. What are all the problems? Do a little research about it and try to learn why it is not included. If possible, comment in the comment section about all these things, and so that others will also, it will be helpful for other people too. Challenges, what are all the challenges we are facing? For example, if same-sex marriage is there, how, what status will be given to the children? What kind of registration will happen? So certain things are there which are very challenging for the government, and we do not have enough amount of rules, enough amount of laws. So a lot of laws has to be amended. So try to find out a little bit about it. It will help you in your mains examination. For mains examination, one important fact which was given today in the newspaper has to be noted down. It is very important for environment for GS3. Two important studies were conducted. One is urban emission study in 2015, and then they reconducted a study in 2018. According to both these studies, it was found out that one of the significant contributor to urban smog, the smog that is there in Delhi NCR region and in most of the cities, in most of the northern cities, is PM 2.5, particulate matter 2.5, and particulate matter 10, 2.5 micron and 10 micron, which is caused by two things. One is transport and then construction sector. This means we need to focus more on regulating our transportation and then construction sector too. That is all for today. Apart from this, there will be some other points also in newspaper. This is why reading newspaper is very important. The most important points, the most important analysis I have already discussed. Apart from this, you need to study the newspaper too. If there are certain extra points, take it, collect it. Even if something has been missed today, it will be covered tomorrow or in the upcoming days. You do not have to worry about it. But then ensure that you give importance to news these days, especially after 2023. News has become very important. Current affairs has become very important. Do not restrict yourself to certain compilations or certain materials. Read news on your own. Everything else should be secondary. Thank you. We'll meet tomorrow for the same session.